A heritage home is a significant investment, both emotionally and financially. So what is it to own one? Are you just a custodial of time? Or do you try and work with the home and pay homage to it, respectfully reinvent it? The architect choice is a really tricky one. If you get it wrong, you end up feeling like you've got a mismatch of a house. You've got all these design concepts and crossing of timelines that don't actually work together. What has actually happened here is they've chosen an architect who is a really contemporary architect. Probably not your first choice when you think of a house like this. But what they've managed to create through the collaboration of the owner and the architect is something really special. It not only pays homage to what it was, but the new extension and the new architecture subtly sits beside it and actually lets it really stand out and be the grand home that it was once designed to be. So Ann-Karyn, 10 years selling in the area. How does this house compare?
This house is nothing like I've ever seen. It is that next level. Sherwood is one of the oldest suburbs in Brisbane. They have kept that heritage and blended it with the contemporary.
At the end of the day, while there are clearly bold elements to the architecture here, the experience of this space, to quote Frank Lloyd Wright, is very much about the journey of discovery. That subtlety of arriving in a place that sort of feels like it always was, and then having it sort of slowly reveal itself. I mean, we take an enormous joy from that because it's lovely that things sort of reveal themselves incrementally. And it's a very modernist idea. I think one of the biggest joys and one of the greatest surprises in this house is when you get into what is a very deep plan, particularly where when I say the old entry, the very, very old entry space was, that threshold's been maintained with the original marble. That is actually original piece refurbished. And above that, there are these beautiful skylights that sort of offer an experience that you just don't expect to have in the middle of a house built in the 30s. The heritage listing of this house is very much to do with the roof, the terracotta tiled roof. That is one of very few examples in Brisbane that is a 45-degree roof, so there's this enormous volume above the house itself. And because it's all brick, the original house doesn't just sit lightly on the ground. I mean, it's running down through the floor plane here, down into sort of subfloor area that created all these amazing opportunities. And what we've really tried to do here is find cues about the house that we can then respond to, and then also things about the house that we can start to exploit and kind of show off, like the brickwork, like these lovely exposed edges of concrete that you see in the garage as well.
So I find this house really interesting because it's one of the few houses I've seen where your DNA as Lockyer Architects is kind of taken the back seat.
I think you're absolutely correct. I think recognising in all the houses that we work with, we're very conscious of the character and the spirit of the homes. With this project, it is quite different, not least of which the critical mass of existing and retained house is overwhelmingly what this home is about. And then because it is so manifestly different in terms of the heaviness of the materials and the solidity of the home, that one has to take a much more subtle and much more gentle approach to what is arguably a much heavier and much more robust building.
Here you come in, and although we've got a building which is essentially designed and built in the 30s, and then we've got something that was completed in 2008, the synergy between the two is actually really gentle.
What we've tried to do here is, first of all, do something that from an architectural perspective has a very, very strong engagement with the existing house. The sort of meshing of materials through in both directions, new floor finishes migrating into the older house, and then older elements of the brick coming into the new house, and even the use of concrete, while typical and characteristic of a lot of our work, is actually generated from materials that existed here already. We're very conscious in our work to make sure that whatever you do when it's finished, that it's one home, that it's not a sense of here's the old house, here's the new house. Your experience of it must be one thing. There's these really amazing engagements of what are clearly contemporary things, but in a way that they really just add to the joy of this existing house. One really gets a sense that verticality through the roof spaces, with what have been some of the biggest skylights we've ever built in this space. And then one of the most amazing features in this house that was part of a very, very strong architectural idea from the beginning is the frameless glass window above me that really frames the heritage listed gable, that one almost has a window from the house into the house. One does always feel vulnerable when you're touching a significant piece of history, that you're leaving a DNA on these projects that will endure in a future life. And we're very conscious of actually doing something that pays homage to what's here. But when one actually comes to the home and you feel the spirit of that, combined with the gardens, the light, the natural light from above, it becomes a very unique and very special kind of equation.
What is here is giving people opportunity to live different lifestyles at the same time.
Yeah.
It suits a big family.
Yeah.
But there's also an intimacy in terms of some of the rooms, like the original fireplace. I'm obsessed with actual fireplaces, not the gas ones, the actual crackling, smelly, smoky, needs lots of attention ones. That's the thing about this house. There is an opportunity for families to live in it, grow in it, and probably expand in it.
Nothing has been done here for the sake of glamour. Nothing has been done here for the reasons of going, we want it to look pretty. Everything has been done here from a fundamental position about this being their home, this about how they want to live, how they want to engage with their kids, how they recognise kids' needs will change and they'll sort of migrate to different parts of the house.
You've created a space which actually pays homage to the old building, and you don't get a lot of opportunities like that.
The critical mass of this home is what was here to begin with. As one migrates through the house to this space, the transition of old to new is still a very seamless one, and the materials and the feel and the quality of light and everything is very much of one experience.
One of the things I've noticed with this home is, like, you come into the kitchen and obviously it's got your kitchen in it, which you need the functionality of the kitchen. We can't have a 30s kitchen here. But when you actually look through, and you've quite subtly done that porthole expansion of moving into the new spaces. But the reference lines that I pick up on are things like the brick here, and I mean they're so subtle, and I think the average eye will actually subconsciously just recognise that as one big house. Yeah. But to me, I can see what you've done. You've actually taken little elements of the house, you've actually spread it out into the new elements.
While there's clearly a delineation between new and old, like with our new work, there are a series of rules that exist about this original home, and we've really tried to take those cues and that DNA and then really have that sort of infiltrate the new work.
Land size.
2,499 square metres.
Huge.
Massive.
Huge.
It's beautiful, and the gardens, we just haven't seen anything like it. It's incredible.